If each one of you could maybe introduce one another for like a minute or so, and what you do, where you're from, who you belong to.
Okay, good morning everybody. I'm Benoît de Juvigny, Secretary General of AMF. AMF is the Autorité des Marchés, Financiers, the French securities regulator. My office is just 100 meters from there, at the opposite of this building.
Once again, Marius Jurgilas. I'm a central banker, and in Lithuania we are Bank de France, securities regulator, financial markets regulator, insurance regulator. We are the integrated supervisor in Lithuania, and I'm leading the fintech agenda in Lithuania.
Right, thank you. So let me kick off the conversation by stating two things. I'm hesitant to say two facts because you might correct me and say actually these are not two important things. When I think about challenges and opportunities for regulation within the EU, right, I think about a set of internal challenges, i.e. how to have various actors from various countries share the same toys within the same sandbox, right? And continue converging towards a market that is more efficient, or markets that are more efficient. That's one thing. Internal. And then external, and I think I alluded to this in my introduction, I believe that we have a block of countries, i.e. the EU, that for certain reasons has emerged as the de facto global standard for certain types of regulations. I'll name only two directives, PSD2 and GDPR. PSD2 directly applies to financial services at large, even though it might be only for payments, but actually it bleeds into how banking is going to be architected from a business model point of view going forward. Some may argue that it might also bleed into asset management and capital markets, at least from the retail perspective. And then GDPR, even though it's not specifically financial services-ish, data privacy has an incredible impact on the financial services industry and any industry that is a heavy consumer of data. I do not see that intent in other geographies, and I see actually the EU intent for financial services and for regulation impacting other countries as they try to converge to that standard model because they're forced to, quote unquote, right? Maybe implicitly, not explicitly. And so the challenge as well as the opportunity is to continue remaining that standard bearer and not fall prey to devolving into either deregulation from the US perspective or some other path. Who would like to either agree with me or disagree and say, no, I see other challenges for the EU?
Generally speaking, of course, I agree with you. The problem is that our regulatory landscape is very, very complicated for the time being, because I should add, we have different trends and different ways we mix together. The first one, sorry to remind that, is that we are still in the middle of implementation of regulation post-financial crisis. MiFID II is the best example. It entered into force last month, or a few weeks ago only. We have what we call CMU, Capital Market Union, which is a kind of tendency to try to converge more at the European level, and also to take more into account, and I go in your direction, the necessity to better finance the economy and to be more that the regulator took more into account the need of financing the economy and well-functioning of the European market. On top of that, we have Brexit, which is something else. We have also, due to Brexit, the necessity to converge more. And fourth, and I have to your point, we have also the fact that this huge European regulation have also side effects throughout the world. GDPR is a good example. I am also concerned by GDPR because, for instance, financial services is concerned, but the regulator also themselves. I am also an enforcer. As an enforcer, I use a lot of data. I have to share this data with counterparts throughout the world. GDPR apply, and so there are, for the time being, also difficult negotiation between regulators from throughout the world under the IOSCO umbrella to put it to some extent apply GDPR also with my American counterpart, and it's not easy.
Yes, if I could add a different angle on that. I think we are going 2 steps forward, 1 step back as Europe. We want to create more competition, and we did that in fintech with the introduction of the PSD, introduction of payment companies, electronic money companies, and with a push with PSD2, which also came in force a month ago. And we still have to see how it's going to be implemented. Will the banking community open up, and those services which the politicians said banks have to provide, will they be provided, and under what technical standards? And that's a step forward. What I think is a step backwards is this granularity of regulation that we're trying to implement across different jurisdictions in Europe. I don't want to point out fingers to countries. And I think that's where our failure is looking globally. No one is sleeping and no one is waiting, and it's not wild, wild west anymore. It's wild, wild east. They don't have GDPR. They have no data privacy, and they're going full steam forward. And what we are doing, we're sticking to our ethical and values, but the war is going on.
You have one fan at least. You used, both of you used, you made a counterpoint and comparing with other jurisdictions, right, that are used to something different or do not have what we have. And you use, I think, the words complex or very complex. Is it the case that one of the challenges is we're trying to chew too much, biting at too much, and doing way too many or implementing way too many EU directives that are centralizing by definition and that are not taking into account the diversity of the EU and the different countries, as well as what's going on outside of the EU, or am I misunderstanding?